Oh, that's helpful. Thank you, everybody. Hi, welcome to the Hiking My Feelings virtual campfire. I was muted. Let's try it again. Yay! We're raising money for the American Diabetes Association as well as RAIN. And on the screen, you will see a rendering of the Hiking My Feelings Wilderness Wellness Center. This is number one, phase one that we're working on. And in here, we have the dome, 32-foot by 32-foot deck with a 24-foot geodesic dome. That is the community hub for all things Hiking My Feelings. So if you come join us for a workshop, a wellness retreat, a backpacking trip, or just a day hike, or if you're part of our online programming, all of that will be filmed and housed and done in the community center, which is that dome in the middle there. We also have room for tents, so people that come out for the weekend can come and stay with us here on site. We have lots of great trails on the property as well as within a very short distance from the property. So we're really excited to be raising this money and building this center so everybody can step into the healing power of nature with us. And I am reading tonight from chapter 15 called Embrace Your Stink. This is one of my favorite chapters of all time of this book. So here we go. If you are joining us and reading along, we're on page 193 in the hard copy. And at the end of chapter 14, we left, we were getting ready to leave to go to Two Harbors. And on our first hike across the Trans-Catalina Trail back in 2016, we didn't get farther than Two Harbors. So anything beyond Two Harbors is new territory for us. So here we go. Embrace your stink. Chapter 15. I woke up in the cold the next morning and made tea to help warm myself up. After the sweaty cruise from the airport into Little Harbor, I was okay with a breeze and some clouds. As we packed up to head over to Two Harbors, I gave myself a wet wipe shower and put on more deodorant. I went to the trash can to toss the wipes, and I still had the deodorant in my hand. I tossed the wipes and turned back towards our campsite. I took a few steps and stopped, looked back at the trash can, then back at the campsite, then at the deodorant in my hand. Did I need to bring deodorant on a backpacking trip? Turns out it's a waste of space and pack weight, because after 4 days on a trail without a shower, you're going to start to smell. That's just how it goes. Even with my dip in the ocean on my birthday, I was still pretty ripe, thus the wipe down. I started to walk back toward the trash can. I lifted the lid, then put it down. This deodorant wasn't physically heavy. I had saved the end of my last tube of deodorant for this trip, so I didn't have to bring the full tube. So as far as adding weight to my backpack goes, it wasn't actually heavy. But emotionally, woo lord, this deodorant felt like an anvil in my hand. It was about the same brand I tested on the first TCT hike, the product of the beauty startup that I eventually became CMO of for those 95 glorious days. This deodorant was loaded with emotional baggage, thus very heavy. This product was the first I tried that Molly made. When this all-natural deodorant kept me from smelling disgusting all the way across the island the first time, I was officially a believer in the product she was making. When I got home from the first hike, I raved about the deodorant. I knew that personal care products were typically loaded with chemicals, and I wanted to know more. If this deodorant was so great, what was the skincare line all about? I wanted to know everything. I had no idea back then that I'd ever work with her at that company, that I'd be CMO of that company, or that I'd quit after 95 days. I certainly didn't know that I'd be on the TCT 2 weeks later after leaving the company, with nothing else in my way, no responsibilities other than my safety hiking across this island. On my first trip, I identified that I had been sold a bag of shit by the beauty industrial complex. I had spent my whole life trying to fit into a box, and on the trail was the first time we attempted this hike. I found love from a body I didn't recognize. I had never felt that way about myself. On this trip, standing at this trash can with a tube of deodorant in my hand, the metaphors were almost too much to bear. Still standing at the trash can, I think about what this tube of deodorant represents to me on this trip. The end of a relationship. This deodorant no longer worked for me. I don't know if the formulation changed or if this was a rushed batch during the big orders, but I smelled to high heaven at home, let alone after 4 days and nearly 20 miles on the trail. As if on cue, Barry comes cruising past with a wisdom drive-by. Hey, ditch the deodorant, embrace your stink, he said, cool as a cucumber. As if I were now playing hot potato with this tube of deodorant, I picked up the lid and chucked the tube in the trash. I immediately felt lighter, like I did in the dressing room the first time, and after all the crying about my friends who had passed. Was this trash can a portal? Was this deodorant actually weighing me down spiritually and emotionally? I raised my arm to smell my pits. What died in here? Embrace my stink. I'm so ripe, I scoffed. Then I thought about it. Embrace my stink. The last time I focused on breaking down the myths I bought into about beauty standards, and on this trip, I'm chucking this deodorant in the trash. I don't need any of it. I'm going to embrace my stink. We all have a scent. Mine was unpleasant at that moment, but we all have a scent. It's what makes us, us. What else makes me, me? What are the things people have said are bad or wrong or gross about my body that I've been trying to fix for years that I just physically cannot fix. I looked at my thumbs. I have type D, better known as club thumbs, or as my sister liked to tease me, toe thumbs. I didn't know anything was wrong with my thumbs until my sister jeered at me one day after school. You know, boys don't like girls with toe thumbs. Sick burn. For the rest of my adolescence, well into 7th or 8th grade, I walked around with my thumbs tucked into my palm, forming a fist to hide the thumbs. Kids being kids, sisters being the worst to each other. Was this true? Probably not. Did I know that? Of course not. So I hid my thumbs, hoping and praying that keeping them hidden would maybe give me a shot in hell at meeting a boy and making some friends. I looked at my thumbs as I went back to the picnic table to grab my gear and carry on to Two Harbors. I knew what was coming. We had a big climb out of this campground and then one of the huge sections with no switchbacks. This was going to be a brutal morning, but at least it wasn't sunny. The clouds would help us again today. As I started hiking, I got a bit indignant about the thumb thing. My thumbs are adorable. Hey, when I give a thumbs up, it may be small and mighty, but there's no question that these are thumbs and they are up. I found a boy who likes me. Wait, has Barry seen my thumbs? Babe, have you seen my thumbs? I shout down to Barry. He had me leading the way on this one, and I was Betty goating, the lady version of being a billy goat, up this sucker. He couldn't hear me. I didn't want to repeat it, so I just flashed him a thumbs up. He flashed one back. I started crying. I paused, got a sip of water, and took off my hat to wipe my forehead. I contemplated getting my cold towel out, but I knew we were climbing on one of the most gorgeous views on this hike, and the wind was already picking up. I let my hair blow around in the breeze, cooling my head down. As I ran my fingers through my hair to pull it back into a ponytail, a fingernail got snagged on a tangle. I had a visceral reaction to the tangle, and I paused. Where did that come from? I asked myself. The last time my nails got stuck in my hair was when I got scolded for not straightening my hair for work. It was the summer of 2010. I had just started skydiving and I was working at a prestigious PR firm down in Chicago. If you've seen The Devil Wears Prada, it's like that, fashion-wise. The folks who worked there weren't nearly as vicious as the characters in the movie, but sometimes the halls felt like a fashion runway. Coming from a suburb of Kansas City, and this being my first job that wasn't in a restaurant, I had some catching up to do on all fronts related to business casual and corporate appropriate makeup and hairstyles. If you know me today, you know that I wear my hair in its natural state. But prior to this section of the trail on this trip, I was a slave to a straightener for the better part of 2 decades. When I was working at the agency, the expectation was to look client ready at all times. I was working in the Chicago office, one of the largest offices for this agency, and a lot of our clients were based in Chicago. You never knew who was in the building. When I first started working there, I was making $10 per hour as an intern. When I got hired full time, I started making $30,000 per year. Moving to a city where I didn't know anyone landed me in a studio apartment by myself. Add to that my monthly bus pass, paying back student loans, car insurance, groceries, and there wasn't much left at the end of the month. Fashion had never been my priority. I was a cheerleader for most of my school years and wore uniforms to school on game days, so I didn't need a lot of clothes. When I went to KU, I was on the rowing team, and we had a team gear that I wore to class most days, as most days we had 2 practice sessions between weights and conditioning and actual rowing practice. So I didn't need a lot of clothes for college either. So, this being my first job, not having a ton of money, I skirted the line of business casual and straight up casual more often than not. When Barry and I started dating, I wanted to spend as much time as the drop zone as I could. I would drive to the office on Friday morning and pay to park in a lot like one of the senior executives did. So I could get out of the drop zone on Friday after work. I rarely made it in time to get a jump in before sunset, but I didn't care. I just wanted to hang out with Barry after he got done working. I'd spend all day Saturday and Sunday on the drop zone, jumping out of planes, helping where needed, chatting with Barry between jumps. I'd spend the night Sunday night and then wake up Monday morning, shower and get ready at Barry's, then drive into the office, park at the garage, and go to work. When I started pulling these longer weekends, I'd bring a bag with a change of clothes for work on Mondays, my straightener, and my makeup. The drop zone was the first place I found since moving to Illinois where I felt like I could be me, fully expressed. I could wear my comfy athletic clothes and not be judged. I could shower and let my hair dry naturally, letting my natural waves and curls do what they do. I didn't wear makeup when I was jumping out of planes. I was just me, and it was glorious. Until one weekend, I forgot my bag, and I didn't realize it until Monday morning. I went out to my car to grab my shower stuff, and it wasn't there. No clothes, no shower stuff, no straightener. Damn it. Fortunately, both of Barry's roommates were quite social with the female skydiving students and licensed jumpers, so I was able to find some shampoo and conditioner in the bathroom. My hair wouldn't be straight, but I could wear it wavy and pull it back a bit to class it up. I could pull this off. I had the outfit I wore on Friday. Fortunately, I changed before the bonfire, so it didn't smell like campfire and it was still clean. But Fridays are definitely super casual, and the outfit I wore the previous Friday was very casual. It was all I had, and I would rather be on time and not totally client ready than go all the way back to my apartment before work and end up being super late. I got ready as best I could, kissed Barry goodbye, and went to the office. I was early. Good. Our office was in an old medical building, and everyone except interns had their own office with a door. I think I'm going to be okay, I thought as I passed her office. The office I passed belonged to the woman who was my assigned mentor, someone I was paired with by HR when I made the transition from intern to full time employee. Her role is to help me stay on track, keep an eye on my work, and make sure I'm abiding by company policy. Sydney, she called out from her desk. Shit, shit, shit. She saw me. I'm in trouble. I walked into her office, head hung in shame like a kid on the way to the principal's office. I knocked twice. She motioned for me to come in. I sat down while she finished what she was typing. She looked me up and down. Yep, here it comes. She wouldn't stop looking at my hair. I could feel my face getting hot with embarrassment, and she turned back toward her computer screen. So, hi, good morning. How was your weekend? She asked, not looking at me. Jesus, lady, let's get on with it already. It was great. I spent all weekend at the drop zone, which, by the way, she stopped typing and looked me up and down again. I trailed off as she gave me another once over. We have clients in the building today. Ah, agency speak for what the hell are you wearing and why are you making me have this conversation with you? I know. I'm so sorry. It won't happen again. It just, well, when you aren't client ready, it looks unprofessional, and we don't want to look unprofessional or unreliable. No, of course not. Again, I'm super sorry. She dismissed me, and I went back to my office. Okay, got it. If I want to stay gainfully employed, this cannot happen again. God, I hope she doesn't tell my boss. I hope this doesn't turn into an office space situation where people keep coming up to me, asking if I knew we had clients in the building. Back on the trail, out of my daydream, I finished pulling my hair back, put on my hat, and continue hiking. Now, I envision myself as my own Flava Flav, the hype man from Public Enemy back in the day. I was hyping myself all the way up. It worked with the thumbs thing. Let's give it a go with the hair. Nah, girl, your hair is sick. People would spend good money to get texture like that. So many folks buy products, get treatments, use devices to get hair like yours. And what? You woke up like that? Your hair is gorgeous, and honestly, your hair has nothing to do with whether or not you're professional or reliable. If anyone says that to you again, you don't need that negativity in your life, professionally or personally. As I continued hiking, I heard my Uncle Mike's voice. Don't you dare cover up those tattoos, Sydney. While I have several tattoos, I've always covered up. Paddleboarding helped me get over my irrational fear of people killing themselves at the sight of my exposed skin, but as far as my clothing choices were concerned, I was still hiding my arms and midsection. I thought about all the times I had covered up and was unnecessarily uncomfortable. Covering up because I wasn't confident in my own skin. I didn't want to be seen. I thought of all the invitations and opportunities I've turned down because I didn't want people to see me like this in my bigger body. Standing on the Amtrak platform at this Union Station in Los Angeles, July. Temperatures hovering around 95 degrees Fahrenheit, trains throwing heat, hair sticking to the back of my sweaty neck, sweat beating up on my upper lip. Probably 120 plus degrees waiting for the train doors to open. Sweat dripping down my back. Oh my God, can the people behind me see my sweat stains? On my way back to San Diego after spending 3 days in LA at the NBC offices, what am I wearing? A long sleeve shirt, black pants, ballet flats, just trying to blend in. I almost passed out that day while I was waiting for the train. I chose to be uncomfortably hot so I could be somewhat comfortable in public. As long as I wasn't being seen, life was good. Thank God it's Barry recommended paddleboarding. That's done wonders for my confidence in my body. I had lived in Southern California for 7 years, and it wasn't until the summer of 2017 when I felt comfortable spending time in a swimsuit on the water. How many more memories could I have made? I didn't go to my high school reunion. I passed on opportunities that required nicer clothes because I didn't really have any. I will never turn down another opportunity because I don't think I have time to lose weight before the event or because I don't feel fashionable enough. I turned into my own hype man again. We were almost to the top. Listen, your tattoos are sick. You paid good money for that art and you know you love them, so don't hide them anymore. Let people see what you've got. It hit me. 3 out of my 5 tattoos are skydiving related, or I got them at a skydiving event. The other 2 were memorial pieces. Yes, the art was great. Yes, I wish my arms were more toned, but this wasn't only about the tattoos themselves or my discomfort in my body. Every tattoo I have starts a conversation. And until right now, on the side of this mountain, I wasn't ready to share the stories that correspond with each tattoo because the memories themselves were too painful. I went through my tattoos in order, reclaiming the stories of how and why I got them and why they were significant. I got my first tattoo the summer I started skydiving. One of Barry's students owns a tattoo shop, so he decided to host a tattoo party for his students in the city. As I sat down, I knew what I wanted. 3 closing pins in a circle, indicating the circle of life and the rule of threes. In skydiving, the number 3 comes up a lot. There are 3 handles you can pull. The first one is your main deployment handle, which releases your main parachute. In the event of an emergency, if something is wrong with your main parachute, you pull a cutaway handle, which releases the parachute from your container, the backpack that skydivers wear, and then you pull your reserve handle, which deploys your reserve parachute. The system that keeps your parachute attached before you choose to release it is called a 3-ring, and is made up of 3 rings that interlock together, which are easily released when the cutaway handle is pulled. The closing pin, of which I wanted 3 forming a circle, is a little curved piece of metal that fits through a loop of fabric that gets passed through several flaps of fabric to keep your skydiving container closed. When you're ready to deploy your parachute, you grab your deployment handle, throw it into the airstream, and it catches air and extends a piece of webbing, which is attached to the pin. The pin is extracted, and a few seconds later, you're floating through the sky under a fully functioning parachute. The last anecdotes on the rules of threes: you try 3 times to correct a malfunctioning parachute before you cut away, and when people die in skydiving, they tend to die in threes. When we would get word of one fatality, we'd hold our breath until the next 2 were announced, because it always seemed to happen in threes. You've been covering this one since you got it, Sydney. Remember when you asked your account lead for permission to get a tattoo? Remember when you showed them what you got? Remember when you were interviewing for the agency in Austin and you were afraid you weren't going to get the job because of a tattoo on your wrist? You've got this. You've always had this. I got my second tattoo at the first big skydiving event I hosted in the sport. I hired the tattoo artist who did my tattoo the year prior to come out and set up shop in the skydiving classroom, making tattoos available for anyone who wanted one that day. I wouldn't say that reading Total Freedom by Jiddu Krishnamurti was a prerequisite for dating Barry, but it could have been. When we were first started dating, he suggested I read it, and I did. Borders bookstore in downtown Chicago had the only print copy of this book in the city. I picked it up after work one day and dove straight in. It's a very heavy read, one of those books where you sit down, read a chapter, and then spend the next hour contemplating the meaning of life. The book changed how I see the world, helped me understand non-attachment, and gave me an inside look as to how Barry lived his life. He was so carefree and cool as a cucumber, despite working in what I would say is a high-stress environment. This book showed me why. A friend of mine had signed a copy of her book for me at a conference earlier that year, and I loved the way she wrote the letter F. I asked her if she could write out the phrase total freedom for me in her handwriting so I could get it tattooed on my foot. She sent me a variety of options, and I picked one out, printed it out, and brought it with me to the party. I marched into the classroom where the artist was set up and handed my piece of paper. I want this on my foot with stars on it. He started sketching. I thought my first tattoo was painful on my wrist. It was nothing compared to some of the areas on my foot. I was grimacing and forcing a smile, and overall having a pretty tough time with this tattoo. But by the time it was done, I was in love. I had the artist position the tattoo so I could read it when I looked down at my feet versus having the words face the opposite direction, making it easier for other people to read. This tattoo was for me. Total Freedom was the title of the book, yes, but to get to this place, getting this tattoo, hosting this party, I took a lot of chances. I moved to Austin the fall after Barry and I met, then moved back to Illinois to work in skydiving. I took a chance on love with Barry and put my corporate career on hold. It was one of the best decisions I've ever made. Total freedom represented my freedom to choose. The placement on my foot was a reminder that I'm free to walk away from situations, people, and jobs that were no longer serving my highest good. Back on the trail, I thought to myself, total freedom, huh? Am I a psychic, or did I just decide to really live my truth on this tattoo? When I got this back in 2011, I never would have guessed that I would have ended up living in Southern California, or that I would retire from skydiving, or that I'd be hiking up a mountain, reclaiming these parts of my body that people said I should cover up if I ever wanted to maintain gainful employment. This tattoo is one of the ones I'm most proud of, and I vow to share the story with anyone who asks. My first half sleeve wasn't far behind. We returned to the same shop where I got my first tattoo for another tattoo party. By this time, I had been skydiving for over a year, and we were starting to think about where we were going to go for the winter. What were we going to do? This time, I wanted something that showed the balance between the sky and water, a yin-yang of sorts. I knew by now to just come with a loose idea and let the artist take the reins, and I'm so glad I did. It was a different artist this time, one who had been doing Barry's tattoos. When he came back with a sketch, I was blown away. It wasn't a literal circle-shaped yin-yang, but the tattoo had a flow between the components and felt like yin and yang. On top, a bird with its wings fully extended, wearing a top hat. On the bottom, a koi fish splashing in the water. My balance between sky and water, skydiving and rowing. 2 decisions I had made for myself, by myself, that were pivotal parts of my life. I joked that I'd tell people I love eating chicken and sushi if I didn't want to get into the whole story. I stopped to catch my breath as I had been charging up this mountain at a good clip. I let the rest of the memory with my uncle play out in my head like a movie, letting his words ring loud and clear in my mind. This was the tattoo my uncle loved so much. This was the one he told me not to cover up. Don't you dare cover up those tattoos, Sydney. I was wearing a shirt that covered up my tattoos, so I put my left hand on my right bicep and caressed it, petting the tattoo that lived underneath. The next tattoo was a memorial piece for my grandmother. She loved stargazer lilies and butterflies. Those were my only two requirements. I don't remember how I found Outer Limits Tattoo in Long Beach, but the owner, Carrie Barba, was the one that I wanted to have do the work on this tattoo. In researching this shop, we found out that not only was it the longest running tattoo shop in North America, but that Carrie was also the only tattoo artist, male or female, to enter a tattoo convention and win every single category. She swept the thing. Her portfolio was incredible, and I was drawn to her energy. She was also $250 per hour. We weren't in Illinois anymore. I remember when she showed me the sketch. In addition to the stargazer and butterflies, I requested a watercolor style tattoo. In the research I had done online, in looking at photos of watercolor tattoos for inspiration, I would have been happy with the style I saw most commonly done. A gorgeous tattoo with drips and drops of color here and there, as if someone were working with watercolors and actually dripped on your skin. What Carrie came back with was a masterpiece. I looked at it looked like a literal watercolor painting, something that could be hung in a museum somewhere. It was hard to envision with the outline, but I trusted her and knew it was going to be magnificent. I wasn't wrong. The piece took several sessions and I was obsessed with it. She managed to work depth of field into the art. Butterflies and part of the flower petal was in focus, and the rest was blurred. There was a little pound beneath the flower, and it had a single drop creating a ripple in the water, with watercolor rainbow reflections on the surface of the water. There was so much nuance and detail. I remember asking Carrie if she ever felt energy during a tattoo session. Oh, yes, of course, she responded. I'm glad you asked because I feel it here big time. Your grandmother was a sweet woman. I can feel her loving energy around this room, flowing through the machine, radiating from you. She is with you always, both in spirit and now with this tattoo. She handed me a small mirror to show her progress. I gasped audibly and felt tears welling up. I looked Carrie in the eyes and mouthed, "Thank you." She nodded and went back to work. The last tattoo I had done was a memorial tattoo for Adam. I went back to Outer Limits, this time with Adam's sister and mom in tow. They were in town for his memorial skydive, which I was coordinating as a function of Planet Green Socks. After the visitation following Adam's death, his mom and sister read a poem called The Dash by Linda Ellis. It talks about how on our tombstone, there is a day we are born and the day we die. And in between, the dash is the life we live on this planet. The poem goes on to ask readers to reflect on how they live their dash. It was the perfect poem for Adam's funeral. He was only 23 when he died, but he lived a long life. He lived his dash. So we were all going to get Live Your Dash on our forearm with some kind of illustration that reminded us of Adam. I didn't want standard tattoo script for this. I wanted real handwriting. A woman I had been working with on web design for the better part of a decade had really funky handwriting, so I asked her if she could write out Live Your Dash for me to use in a tattoo design. Next to the words, I wanted a feather to represent Adam's eternal flight. He had earned his wings now. His mom chose a couple of elements from Adam's full sleeve tattoo, a timer filled with sand and a pair of dice. His sister got a compass, a reminder of his love of travel and her desire to keep traveling in his memory. When we walked into the shop, introduced ourselves to the artist, and sat down to wait while she finished up the sketches. We spent all day in that shop while we rotated through the chair. We shared memories and stories about Adam, and it was one of the most impactful days I had ever spent in a tattoo shop. Little signs of Adam were everywhere, and it brought me great comfort to know that his mom and sister were also tuned into his various appearances. As the sun set and the tattoo shop got darker inside, I thought of one of Adam's signature phrases. On the drop zone in Illinois, we had the pleasure of witnessing some of the most beautiful sunsets over the cornfields. The land was so flat and the sky was so vast, it was a really spectacular sight. Adam always used to say, "You only get so many sunsets." By the time I got up to the top of the peak, I felt incredible. I was out of breath, sweating like it was 100 degrees outside, and that process on the way up released some serious weight for me. I took off my shirt. Now I was making up for lost time. Sydney Williams doesn't wear shirts anymore, I thought to myself. I asked Barry to take pictures of me on top of this peak. I put my hands on my hips, stood like a superhero, and took a few deep breaths. I took in the view while standing in my power for the first time. I had just reclaimed parts of my body that people had told me I should fix. As I stood there, I recalled one of the lessons from the first hike. I love my body. On that first hike, I thought I was really loving my body, but here, in this moment, this feeling felt like self-love. What I had experienced on the first trip was the transition from hating my body to accepting it. That shift alone felt revolutionary for me because of all that negative self-talk takes up a lot of space. So in the absence of hatred, acceptance feels like love. I didn't know if it was the TED Talk about power posing, the exercise I had just done to reclaim my shine, or perhaps a combination of the two. But this right here felt like I was home, mind and body reconnected. I took off my hat, walking to the edge of the cliff. I threw my arms up with glee, thanking this island for carrying the weight of the memories I was recounting here. The wind picked up again and I let my hair down. It was tangled and matted after 4 days on the trail with no shower, and some of the natural texture was coming back. The wind whipped around my body, cooling me down rapidly on top of this peak. I scanned the surrounding area, observing the dramatic cliffs dropping into the ocean, looking back to where we came from, looking ahead to what was still in store for us on this section of the trail. This is new territory, I thought. Geographically, everything after Two Harbors was new to us. Physically, I've never hiked this far in so many days. What will I feel like tomorrow? How about the day after that? What was Parsons going to be like? What about the route to get there? Emotionally, this is definitely new territory. I'm working through some serious stuff so far on this trail, and while there has been a significant amount of crying, none of this is scary. None of this makes me sad. With each step, I feel more and more like myself. With each step, I feel like I'm getting closer to the woman I have always known I could be. Confident that Barry got this shot, I turned around, made a beeline for my shirt, and got dressed again. It's chilly up here, and I was really looking forward to getting to Two Harbors and grabbing a buffalo milk. Boom, shaka, laka. That is chapter 15. And I'm not going to waste any time because I've got Nattali Rize here. So, hey, Nattali Rize, come on down. Yes. Hello.
Unmute this. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Great. How are
Hi.
you?
I'm wonderful. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. Staying up
Good.
full, staying well, busy.
Good. Yeah, busy is excellent. So, for folks that don't know you, would you mind introducing yourself and telling us where you're joining us from today?
My name is Nattali Rize. I am an evolving being. I am a musician, singer, percussionist, guitarist, songwriter. I am from Kingston, Jamaica.
Oh boy, that is not California. That's awesome. So recently you put up a campaign of sorts. You released a song called One Love is Action. And that is something that we firmly believe here at Hiking My Feelings. And I think everybody on the call can agree. Could you explain to us a little bit about that song and where you got the inspiration for it?
For sure. Faith is a phrase that one of my good sisters uses often, and it's inspired by. She is an artivist, a filmmaker, a storyteller, and just a really a community activist. She's also the granddaughter of Rita and Bob Marley, and she's such a powerful, inspiring person, and she has many, phrases that guide out whenever we can. And she has many, phrases and shape the many different camps. And we work together on and off, and to her and who in her life does she feel embodies that. And she went on to explain that the term one love was first iterated by Marcus Garvey, and Bob Marley had then taken those words and turned them into the song that we all know and love, and that has gone on to do lots of work around the world. But something that I wanted to really drive home in the message of this song is that one love is not just something we say and sing and we feel good and just things, but it's more than that. it's action. So it's definitely One Love is Action is a very timely song to come out right now, and it always would have been, but now it definitely rings true because it's definitely a time for action on it. Is my connection okay? Are you hearing me? Oh, I seem to
I'm
have
having a hard
lost
time.
you. Are you hearing me?
Yes, I can hear you fine. I'm just switching to my phone.
My side. I don't know if I dropped out.
There we go. All right.
I don't know where did it drop out?
I heard
Oh.
I heard you talk about the meaning of one love is action. All right. Whew. Yay. The first time we've ever had technical difficulties is on my favorite one. All right. Awesome.
It could be on my end too, you know, it's quite possibly my end.
All right. So let's chat about this chapter. So the chapter that I just read, the mantra that we've selected for the chapter, it says, I am working to embrace my unique being in its entirety, mind, body, and spirit. And the title of the chapter was Embrace Your Stank. So it was about reclaiming these parts about our bodies, our spirits, our energy that people say that we need to fix or shift to fit into a very narrow standard, whether that's a standard of beauty or a way that we are supposed to behave. What are some things that you do to just stay grounded and confident in your body?
Well, first of all, we are all works in progress. So irrelevant of what anybody says at any time, as long as you are doing the works on yourself, what you know resonates with your higher self, then really is no room, time, or space for anybody else's opinion. You know what I mean? I think that we are our we are our own leaders, and we have to tune into ourselves to really find that the real guide and the real guidance. So anything coming from outside is more likely a reflection of them and not you. That's kind of how it works. For me, I just I'm growing and evolving of, like we're all doing that inner work. It's the inner work that gives you the grounding. It's that inner work that gives you that strength, that mental clarity and confidence. Of course, it has to do with the cleanliness of your temple and your body, and your inner environment. The outer environment is a reflection of the inner environment, and that's on the microcosm and the macrocosm. So, I really, that's why I say the real revolution is the evolution of our consciousness and our minds, because it's that work when we know and we grasp that we have the power, that we are able to love ourselves completely. It is only then that we're able to really love other people, and not just other people, but all people, and not just people, beings, everything in this earthly, even, cosmic family that we have. So that's where it starts, like for me, and that's where you can grow too. So, and like I said, it's a constant evolving process. You have to have goals, and you have to check in on yourself every now and then. And you might be doing great for a while, and you fall off. That's okay. Get back up. You know what I mean? And I don't think anybody can really judge. I think judgment is such a dissonant, energy. It's like, why bother? You know what I mean? Like, why waste your time? Just remember that you were at a place once upon a time. You're not the same person you were 5 years ago, and everybody is growing and evolving at a pace, and we come into lessons at different times in our lives when we're ready to receive them. And I feel like the expedition of consciousness growing now is so powerful and so like you can really see it, and it's so great, you know, it's so great. So more of us are reawakening and realizing the power we have, and then after that, how our connectivity and our collaboration can bring about new worlds and new creations and new ways of thinking, living, loving, existing. Yeah, all of these things. So you just got to stay powerful in yourself.
Yeah, that's something that really resonates with me, and that something that we believe at Hiking My Feelings, and one of like my deepest, darkest truths is that when we are able to do this work for ourselves and find our own confidence and our own ability to not judge ourselves, then it's harder to judge others if you aren't already judging yourself. So when we do this work for ourselves, and then we start glowing a little bit because we like reclaim our power and start feeling great, then we show up in community and people are like, what is she drinking? Like, what is going on here? This is good stuff. And then they do the work, and then that's the big ripple effect, right? So like, what are some things that we can be doing now? Like if somebody's watching this and they're like, oh my gosh, this is the most brilliant wisdom I've ever heard. What are some actions that people can take to start loving themselves, so in turn they can love others more?
I think that listening, learning, reading. I think reading is a big one for me, like the whole learning process. Finding, like, following your intuition as to where your energy may be guided to learn. Like sometimes it's a book or a website or an Instagram page or whatever it is, you know, something will spark something along the way. I think we definitely have a responsibility to be active in seeking these things. I can't tell anyone in particular what's the greatest thing for them to do right now because it's hard to know where they're at on their journey. But I think that the more you tune into yourself, take that time to really tune into self and consider, of course, just like we have to feed ourselves with knowledge and wisdom that comes outside of the mainstream media. Like, evidently, you know, we really have to dive into these other avenues and feel what resonates and see. And you'll find that there is just so much incredible human thought and practices and art and, like, you know, spirit science even. Yeah, like there's so much out there, and you really just got to follow your intuition and let yourself be guided and do the work, you know. And that's the thing, it's putting that one step in front of the other, and sometimes it can just be that moment where you go, all right, I'm just gonna put on my yoga clothes this morning, and you're one step closer to actually doing, you know what I mean? Like, sometimes you have to trick yourself into doing it, but it is in the action of doing things that the lessons actually come, and you'll find that you have revelations in whatever it is that you're doing when you're doing the higher works and the works on self. It just comes. Like, that's how it works. You got to put in the work to get the lessons and then continue to grow.
That's great. And there's a line, and I can't remember the name of the song to save my life right now, but there was a line about how we are the only creatures that pay rent to exist on this planet, which basically blew my mind like all the way to somewhere else, because I was like, yeah, we are. And when I point that out to people, they're like, wait a minute, that's right. So in the spirit of building new worlds and stuff like that, what does the future, like what kind of future do you see, and how do we get there?
I think that, you know, the basic steps are revealing themselves, and especially with the global pandemic that has happened, I think just the idea of food scarcity is a huge lie, but also just, you notice how going back to simple things like making sure you're self-sustainability. In the case of anything happening out there, we need to really understand and embrace the fact that we cannot rely on a system for all of our wellness, you know, and our needs. And when you strip it back and when you see what has happened, you realize, yeah, it's safe, a shelter to be under, food and clean water and air, you know, and family or community. So these are the things that you need to put energy into, I believe, at this time. One of the campaigns I'm doing is called Get Growing, and we're literally encouraging people to grow their own food. And that sounds simple, but it's a huge step. Imagine we did not have, nobody had to pay for vegetables or fruit, because streets in every city and every corner, there was just gardens and abundance of food. Like freedom, food freedom, that is self-sustainable. And not only that, it's healthy. Like, it's all connected. And I think the more that you start to really if that a line like that connects with you'll know, and you'll find it. We're the only ones who pay to live on earth. Yeah, the birds and the bees don't pay rent, trees don't pay rent. So we know that that's an imposed system that doesn't actually equate to life. Yeah, it's not a life giver, and it's not what we need to survive. What we need to survive is, yeah, ourselves and the resources that earth has given us. And the more we go in on those things, like I said, that's where the lessons will come. Like, I'm learning a lot just from planting food myself for the first time now. And if I wasn't physically putting my hands in the dirt, I wouldn't be receiving these vibrations. So plant your own food, catch your own water, these sorts of things are definite practical steps in building new wealth.
And where can people find out more information about that campaign to grow your own food? Because I know you've been doing a lot with that lately. And if you want to speak more to that, that would be awesome. Because I know a lot of people in the comments and ahead of this were like, ask her about growing vegetables. So if you've got more to say, we'd love to hear it.
Yeah, for sure. You can. I'm part of a campaign by Itopia Life, which is a herbal dispensary here in Jamaica. They grow all of their medicinal ganja by the sun, and all locally grown. And really, this campaign that they have imagined and enacted comes from just the exact feeling that they want their fellow Jamaicans and global family to be able to grow their own food and medicine, knowing very well that that is a very powerful thing to do and a very powerful skill to have. And especially in all countries where there's poverty, it's like people know that farming can you can farm yourself out of poverty. Yeah. So definitely being a part of this campaign has been been a joy for me to be able to contribute and to learn and to really put myself forward in the space, to be able to encourage people with something that's so in line with my philosophy about reclaiming the way we live and breathe, and the future possibilities on earth. So yeah, definitely we've been planting from seed the first week. We've been planting from food scraps last week. This weekend, we're going to be working with creative containers, how you can make like pots and stuff out of things you have already around the house, like recycling. I know there's a lot of gardeners out there. They already know all this stuff. So that's cool, though, because I really call on everyone to join my Rising Seeds Grow team. At the end of this campaign, which is 11 weeks in total, the person with the most Grow team members get to give a community garden fully set up to a charity here in Kingston, Jamaica. And I've just seen the list of growers on my team, and they're from all over the world. And even just knowing that there's gardens in all of those places just brings so much joy. Like, I feel like we've all won, and that's just me. Like, there's 8 ambassadors, so it's a really positive, and just having that energy. Energy feeds energy, momentum feeds momentum. We're open to learning, we're open to growing, and we want to do it together. So Yeah, Itopia Life. You can get all the info, itopialife.com, of course, through my socials. It's all there. It's all very recent. It's all happening now.
Very cool. So if there's anybody in the chat, get ready to ask your questions. But Nattali, if you have a song you'd like to share, we'd love to hear it.
All right, let's do it. We're definitely gonna sing the new tune,
Woohoo!
the newest tune, I should say. Yeah. Make sure you can do it properly. My worldwide rebellion beast. Boom. Yellow buds on the rhythm, Cali roots representing. Nattali Rize speaking to the global heart. One love is action. One love is an action, yes. One love is action, yeah. One love is an action, yeah. Hey, I got the message in the melody. Sing it all night if you wanna keep up with me. Hey, yeah, we live by this philosophy. One people, one heart, one family. It resonates, cause it in your song. But the whole world is yet to believe it all. So take my hand and step with me, walk and do talk till we reach a new reality, baby. I know you know that action is power, love is our weapon, and this is the hour. Although it may seem what it can sour, it's a reflection, so bloom like a flower. Sometimes you're lonely, others feel it too. Treat your neighbor as you'd have a trio. Know there's people everywhere just like you. Share a smile, let the vibes unite you. Yeah, one love is action. Oh yeah, one love is an action, yes. One love is action, yeah. One love is an action, yes. One love is action. One love is an action, yeah. Other people say action, yeah. One love is an action, yeah. Comes and I'm feeling we start realize the one with the heart and the things we knew perhaps we didn't know. Sense of deeper truth is written in our souls. Our direction is towards affection, and we're on the seeking. And don't judge another upon the journey. It's a higher path, long as we are learning that in the school of life you get what you give. Yeah, the more you share, the more you receive. Let your words be love and your actions reflect joy and happiness. The only side effect. So let love lead the way. Inside our heart should be the most peaceful place. Every interaction, love and unity into the community. Yeah, yeah, yeah. One love is an action, yes. One love is action, yeah. One love is an action, yeah. Nature rebel said action, yeah. One love is an action, yes. One love is action, yeah. One love is a see we rockin' with a rhythm and loving how we living. When I know we is singing with love, moving to the music, everybody grooving, everything we doing with love. Skanking to the highest pace. Don't you worry about a thing. We up in the rain and see that the life we're living is up to we. Yeah, one love, one love, one love is an action. Yes. One love is action, yeah. One love is an action, yeah. One love is action, yeah. One love is an action, yes. One love is action, yeah. One love is an action, yes. One love. One love is action.
Woo! Awesome. Yay. All right. So let's see. Well, one of our guests in the Zoom chat wants to know if it's too late to show you her poster for One Love is Action.
It's not too late.
Not too late.
You can absolutely still send it. We're in the editing. We're editing the We're editing the video this week, so we've started the edit. If you still have some little video clips of it, there is a link in my Instagram bio. It's a Dropbox link. You upload your images or video to that link, and I will get it. And that part of the video is not yet finished, so there is still a little bit of time.
Perfect. Awesome. And Mary is joining us. She has a question. Go ahead, Mary.
Hi, thank you. Hi, Natalie. So I'm fairly new to the global reggae scene, but it seems to be mostly male artists. So I was wondering if you could speak to some of the challenges you experienced as a female reggae artist and how you've overcome them.
It's a constant. It's an ongoing navigation process. There is a lot of incredible female talent that I definitely feel needs to be given a more equal opportunity on the stage, in the reggae genre, and in other genres as well. For me, it's definitely a part of my mission, and I've been working with some incredible upcoming talent. I want to say just like local talent in Kingston, Jamaica, that I'm using my platform to get out to share their art, which is amazing. So yeah, like it's a real thing. I think women in every industry face some sort of sexism and equal opportunity is not quite there. And for me, it is a responsibility to have an equal representation on stages. Like at a festival event, for example, if you're not showing a balance, on stage, then kids and people at the festivals, they're not getting a proper reflection of what the community is like. So yeah, it's a big part of the mission for me for sure, to keep making sure the female voices are out there, not just because we need balance, but because there is so much incredible talent. And right now in Jamaica, females are running the scene in reggae. And like literally anybody you ask can tell you that. And I would love to see the rest of the world follow suit. So it's there, it's happening. We just got to all give our energy, and you are well within your rights to demand more female representation at your local venues, events, festivals, shows. It's going to be an effort of all of us to make sure that we get our sisters up there.
I love that.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. I think we got Jess has a question as well.
Hi. So much blessings. Thank you. My question today, I was watching your videos because I do that a lot, and I noticed a hashtag. So I followed the hashtag of Occupy Pinnacle to a lot of amazing places on the internet, but I'd love to hear more about it from you.
Sure, yeah. Yeah, and this is interesting that you say Occupy Pinnacle, because that's also another the one of the driving campaigners is Donisha, the same One Love is Action, and you can see, you would have seen her if you were looking at Occupy Pinnacle. So Pinnacle is they say it's the first Rastafari community that Leonard Howe started, and Leonard Howe was the first Rasta man in Jamaica. He was a sustainable, self-governed, sovereign community. There was over 500 acres, including a pinnacle, which is like the top of the mountain. And now they were thriving. They were up to like, they were a thriving community. They had their own bakeries, their own schools, their own, housing, and they eventually got raided. They grew their own ganja and they would trade it, and like they were doing it. They were self-sustainable in a time where it was very difficult to do that. And they then eventually got invaded, and there's now only, I think, 5 acres or less out of 500 that is still that belonged to Leonard P. Howe and his family. They bought it, but right now the government had taken all but the actual pinnacle is left, like the land around the actual mountaintop. And if you look at my video Warriors, we filmed it up there. And we filmed it with Denisha. We had a Labor Day work day up there. We were planting um, fruits, foods, and ganja. We were singing and chanting, and that video was filmed in part at Pinnacle. So Occupy Pinnacle is definitely a movement to reclaim the land, and something that I think is really valid too is that then, you know, on those 500 acres right now is a number of houses and flats, and you know, it would be difficult to evict all the people that are on Pinnacle lands right now. However, Rasta is not asking for that. They're just asking to allot them their 500 acres, but they can be anywhere, other safe places around Kingston, other pieces of land where their community can gather safely and you know, practice life and liberty of Rastafari. So yeah, it's an ongoing, really good one to be tuned into. Itopia Live are also connected in there. They have a Pinnacle strain, so there's a lot of support for Pinnacle out here by musicians and community leaders. They see and know the history and the validity of having a place that is so historic and so old and has so much story and so much power, and you know, it must be preserved. So yeah.
It sounds like it's not only a matter of justice and legal right, but it's also a spiritual birthplace.
Exactly.
So
Definitely. Yeah, definitely. You're welcome.
All right. Let's see. Allison, if you want to share your One Love is Action art, that would be awesome. Go ahead and pop that on. Yes.
I'm not seeing it yet.
If you switch to gallery view, Allison, unmute yourself. There you go.
Oh, okay.
There you go.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. That's
Yeah.
incredible.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I met you in Denver. I met you in Denver
Nice.
at the
Nice.
Macro show. Yeah. So anyway, this is what I'm going to send a picture of later. After this, I'll send it.
Please do. It's incredible.
Thank you.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Yeah.
Amazing. Thank you for sharing that. All right. Perfect. And Lauren,
There's
did you have a
been such
question?
incredible art coming in. It's been so nice.
All right. Okay, well, it looks like we're good on this. So, Nattali, thank you so much. Where can people find you? What can we do to follow you? What are you working on right now that you're super jazzed about?
You can follow me in all the typical places. You can find me Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. I have a Rize Warriors group on Facebook, and I share some different things there, and we'll be doing some more work there. As you know, I have the Rising Seeds at the moment. I'm focusing on that. That's the Get Growing campaign, and new music coming. It's so I'm in the midst of my album campaign. The album is called Worldwide Rebellion, and at the moment we released 2 singles from it, Fear and Dread and Worldwide Rebellion single. I have some new music coming in a couple of weeks, or is it next week? You'll have to see. And then we're going to keep on that journey of just keeping to, you know, stay connected in any way we can. So if anyone wants to join in and connect up, of course, link me. I'm there, and definitely, yeah, here for the journey, here for the mission. So yeah, stay connected, and thanks so much for sharing the space. And I look forward to meeting and connecting in person. It's a must. And you know, as soon as travel opens up, I'm sure I'll be finding myself in the United States in one way or another. So soon come.
Fantastic. Awesome. Well, we would love to have you out here. You're always welcome at the ranch and at the Wellness Center once we get it built. So thank you so much for joining us, and have a great rest of your night.
Thank you. Take care. Peace.
All right. So Miss Sirena, come on down. Yes. Oh my God, pretty lady. Okay, let me see. I'm going to switch back over to my computer. That is working now. Da, da, da.
Doing that. Thanks to Nattali. That was amazing.
Right? Oh my gosh.
Oh, you're muted.
Kidding. Hey.
Isn't
I was just telling Barry, I was like,
so fun?
dude, well, like, I mean, we've been doing this. This is the 16th campfire. And I was like, what could possibly go wrong? I was like, or all of it. I don't know. It's fine, but you're here. So this is awesome. Thank you so much for being here.
Yeah.
So for people that don't know you, introduce yourself and let us know a little bit about where you are and what you do.
Great. So my name is Sirena Rana Dufault. I go by she, her pronouns, and I'm coming to you from Tucson, Arizona, the ancestral land of the Tohono O'odham and the Pascua Yaqui. I have a trails company. It's called Trails Inspire, and I promote the outdoors through writing, photography, public speaking. Not so much public speaking right now, maybe more Zooming and this sort of thing. But I also do trail design and development for communities and private land ownership. So it's a multifaceted company. I've been on my own since 2017, and that's the basics. I am currently, I finished a book. It's on the best day hikes on the Arizona National Scenic Trail. It'll be out in August, we're hoping. There's been a lot of delays because of COVID, and so just trying to be flexible like everyone else.
Awesome. And from what I gather, you are a lady with a lot of trail experience, which also includes stories. So we're at a campfire. Do you have a story you'd like to share?
I do. And, you know, I would totally be outside, but it's probably still over 100 degrees here in Tucson. So I'm inside and the air conditioning cranked all the way up. So especially because then I'd be all sweaty. So I do have a story, and, you know, your theme was, you know, about being able to be your authentic, like most honest self. And when, you know, when I saw that that was the theme, it made me think of how much I've gotten from being a solo backpacker and doing solo hiking, and just that is really when I feel the most free. I'll back up a bit and tell you about the short version on how I got into hiking. I didn't grow up hiking or backpacking or anything like that. I grew up in the Chicago suburbs, and I'm the child of two immigrant parents. My dad is from India and my mom's from Italy. And though we went on trips to like national parks and things like that when I was growing up, my dad loves nature, he loves photography. That's where I got my love for the outdoors. But you know, he didn't have that culture of going out for a hike. So we, you know, like never put on a backpack and went for a hike. But growing up, I had a, you know, connection to the outdoors. Even in my suburban home in Chicago, the neighborhood that I grew up in, they didn't finish building the neighborhood because there was a downturn in the economy. So as a result, there was this big chunk of forest right outside my house, right across the street. And so I spent a lot of time there, like just all of my time. I've had the same best friend since I'm 4 years old. And so like we were always out there. So even though I never went hiking, I still had a really, you know, I had a strong connection to the outdoors. But it wasn't until I moved to Arizona. Here's the interesting way I got out here. I was a fashion design major in college. And then I was going to go to I was taking classes at a community college in Chicago, and I was going to transfer to the New York Fashion Institute of Technology and in New York City. But one day I took a class on anthropology, and that just really piqued my interest. I was kind of losing interest in fashion anyway. And so I decided to change my major. And instead of going to Fashion Institute of Technology, I chose the University of Arizona, sight unseen. I never visited. I didn't know anything, didn't know anyone here. But they had a really good archaeology program. And also when I looked at the brochure, there was this line of palm trees on the campus with a mountain behind it. And I lived in flat Chicago, and I was like, wow, palm trees and a mountain, that's like amazing for anybody who lives in the Midwest. So it wasn't the only reason I chose, but it definitely, I did not want to hike through the snow to get to my class. So I came out to Arizona, and like I had been on one hike in Wisconsin before I went, before I came out here. And it really wasn't, I just didn't know anything about hiking. I did meet a couple people, and they took me on my first hike, and they took me somewhere with water, which was pretty amazing. And from then on, I was like, wow, this is pretty neat. Like I had no idea that there was water in the desert. But I was in my last semester of college at the University of Arizona, and I was walking across the street. It was like 3 days into my last semester, and I was hit by a car as a pedestrian while walking across the street. They hit me, I saw them coming, I turned, they hit me in the lower back, and I was told that by eyewitnesses that I flew about 4 feet up in the air, and I came down on I came down in the street, and nothing was broken, but it definitely it changed things. So it changed everything basically. The acute injuries, this was back in 1997. So I was 22 at the time, and of the accident. And so after a little while, the initial injuries went away, but I still wasn't feeling right. And I had a lot of chronic pain. I was having problems sleeping. I was having just intense, widespread pain that was disrupting my whole life. Things were getting worse. I was seeing all sorts of doctors. Nobody knew what was wrong with me for ages. Until about 1.5 years later, I was diagnosed with fibromyalgia, which is a chronic pain condition. And that was why I wasn't getting better. A lot of times fibromyalgia can be brought on by a traumatic event, an illness. There's a number of different ways, but it's a neurotransmitter. Basically, for me, and everybody's fibromyalgia is different because it's a syndrome. And so it's a collection of symptoms. But for me, it was extreme fatigue and pain and just hypersensitivity. So if somebody just poked you in the arm, it would feel like somebody was it was so intense and painful. And sometimes even hugs were painful. And so I was only 23 at the time of my diagnosis, and it was just it was depressing. Nobody knew really. This was back in the 90s, so fibromyalgia wasn't really necessarily known about so well. And then also there was a faction that thought that fibromyalgia wasn't even really a thing. And so as a result, even though I was hit by a car, I got very little in the settlement because they argued that fibromyalgia wasn't really a thing back then. And so it was just really bleak. In November of 1998, over 1.5 years later, I lost my job. I was working, I had gone to school for archaeology, but I couldn't do archaeology because I was physically unable to do that. And so I went back to one of my other jobs, which was in the video game industry. And so I was able to work at a desk, but after a while, I wasn't even able to work at a desk anymore. And I ended up getting let go from my job as a video game producer. And that was pretty much the low point. The next couple months I spent in bed and just miserable and just didn't know what didn't know what the future held. And I didn't hear any good stories to make me feel any better about it. And so there was just all of this, you know, sadness and uncertainty. And then at one point I decided that I had this big giant dog. His name was Zeus, and he was a German Shepherd mix. Giant, big dog. Always up for a walk or whatever. And so I started taking walks with my dog. And I found that, you know, as I was taking walks with my dog, it kept my mind off of it. Even if I was sore after I do it, it would keep my mind off of it while it was happening. And, you know, it was just so nice to be outside. And Zeus, my dog, was always up for a walk. So those walks actually turned into small hikes. At the time I was dating my husband, Brian, and he was going with me for these short hikes. We would put a little pack on Zeus and we'd go for these short hikes. And very, very gradually, I started to do longer and longer and longer hikes. I mean, we're talking over years though, but at one point they got too long for Brian, and he was like, yeah, have a nice time and take the dog. So then it was just me and Zeus, and we were just kind of figuring it out for ourselves. You know, I didn't have a background in hiking or, you know a whole lot of anything, but I just did what I could. And I did it all solo too, because I was terrified to hike with anybody, because I thought I was the slowest, just like super like weak hiker. And I just couldn't imagine that anybody would want to, you know, stand around and wait for me while I caught my breath or whatever else. And so I was like, okay, you and me, Zeus, we're going to do this on our own. And so that actually, like, that made all the difference. And it really pulled me out of my depression. Not all the way, obviously. It's not like a, you know, magical fix at all, but it definitely like made me have something to look forward to. It gave me a sense of accomplishment. And it just gave me some of that, you know, confidence back that I had lost being so sick and so weak. So, so these hikes progressed. And then in 2007, I was on a hike and I saw this sign for the Arizona Trail. And the Arizona Trail is 800 miles long, and it goes from Mexico to Utah. And when I saw this sign, it actually wasn't even finished yet. There's still probably about 60 miles left to build. But I got this idea that I was going to hike the first 200 miles, and I was going to do it in sections and get to this point where I had seen the sign. But then a friend of mine was like, well, why don't you just try and do the whole thing? And I was like, me, you know, 800 miles, how the heck am I going to do that? But then I realized I like started looking into long distance hiking, because I had no idea about long distance hiking. I just knew day hiking. And so I had been on one backpacking trip. Some friends of ours got permits for the Grand Canyon. And so even though I was like, never been backpacking before or anything like that, the Grand Canyon was my very first hike I ever did when I moved to Arizona, when I was driving to move to the state. And so we did this backpacking trip, and that was in 2001, and it just about killed me. I mean, it was so hard. We took way too much stuff. I mean, just all the classic, you know, bring everything but the kitchen sink, and way too many clothes. Our packs are like towering over our heads. And so after that, you know, I came up and I was exhausted, and it just took everything out of me. It probably took a week for me to recover from it. But I was like, when can I do this again? Brian, on the other hand, he was like, yeah, I think you can go, you know, have a nice time again. And so I didn't go backpacking though again until like 2005. I went on one overnight by myself. So when I started the Arizona Trail in 2008, I decided I was going to through hike it, but then the economy crashed. So I just ended up changing it into a section hike. And in February 2008, I did my first section, and I decided to do it to raise awareness for fibromyalgia, because like I said, there was no good stories out there. I saw just all these really just depressing, you know, she had fibromyalgia and she never did anything again, you know, sort of stories. And so I wanted to add something different to that narrative.
Right. Yeah.
As an awareness walk for fibromyalgia, and I raised money for the National Fibromyalgia Association. And so over the next like 15 months, I would go out for a couple of days at a time. And I would hike the Arizona Trail. I'd get a shuttle, and I'd shuttle back, and then I'd come home and work. And then I'd go out and do it again. I had a bunch of people that, you know, pitched in to help. Brian helped. My dad actually came out from he still lives in the Chicago area. He's retired. He came out to like shuttle me around and things like that. And, you know, just all of the trail community that I met just banded together to get me through this trail. And it was amazing. Even though I did almost all of it by myself, I still had so much support. And I did actually, I teamed up with a couple people on parts of the trail that hadn't been built yet. So it was like, you know, nasty bushwhacking through the desert with no trail. And so for those pieces, I you know, generally teamed up with somebody, but I did almost the entire thing myself. And that was such an incredible experience, because I always say that like the person that started that trail is totally different than the person that ended that trail. And I did finish the trail coincidentally on May 12th, which is National Fibromyalgia Awareness Day, which just kind of worked out that way, which was an incredible thing. I mean, to walk through that, like walk through the portal where I connected my steps and stuff. And it was actually at the point where I'd had that idea in 2007 in the first place. Like that was just, it was a priceless experience. And that basically it's the foundation for everything else I've done since. You know, it's that confidence and that, you know, I mean, like we're talking, I knew nothing about gear. I was in Summit Hut. You know Summit Hut, you had a great talk there. I was in Summit Hut like a couple times a week being like, Craig, how about this? What about this? You know, like I asked so many questions. And so like, I just feel like, you know, part of my message is like, if I can do that, like I knew nothing. There's no reason that like other people can't come out of their comfort zone and try things. And, you know, and I try and put myself up there as you know, as an example of, you know, even if you didn't grow up doing these things, and even if you don't have a background doing these things, it's still for you. It's not, you know, it's not some elite thing. It's going out and taking a walk, you know, and people get really you know, so involved and stuff, and you have to have all these things and whatever else, but like, it's really just taking a walk. And I used to try and get people to go backpacking. That was like my goal. But then I realized like step it way back, like just get people outside, like go for a walk, you know, find cool places in your neighborhood. I think that has been, you know, really just super valuable these times where, you know, because of my fibromyalgia, I'm pretty strict on where I'm going and, you know, who I'm interacting with and stuff. And so like finding those places and just having those outdoor experiences, and really, you don't have to go on an 800-mile hike to understand what I understood. And so that's where a lot of my work with Trails Inspire comes in, is just trying to show people that, you know, you can go out and do this too, and here giving them, you know, information. And I'm really excited about the book, because the book has been, you know, ages coming. After I finished the trail, I actually got a job with the Arizona Trail Association, and I developed their Gateway Community Program. And then I ended up through hiking the trail in 2014 to raise awareness for the trail itself and the Gateway communities. And I did a through hike, and on top of the through hike, I did 12 fundraisers on my through hike. So on my 0 days, instead of having a 0 day and like chilling out, I like had a fundraiser with like music, food, and beer for everybody. And it was an incredible experience again. And so this book is like, it's the culmination of all of these things. And like, I know where the good spots are, and I'm excited to share them with people. And not only does the book it's got 30 hikes all along the Arizona Trail, but each of the hikes has a shorter hike version. So like if you're a beginner, or if you've got kids, or, you know, you just want to try something out, or you don't have a lot of time, like each of the hikes has a short version. And so I think that makes it even more accessible to people, because a lot of times people that are just beginners get left out and things like this. And I think, you know, my job is to make it as unintimidating as possible, because in promoting the Arizona Trail all these years, I find that people shut their brains off when they hear 800 miles. They're like, oh, 800 miles, I can't possibly do that, you know, but the whole point is you don't need to, and it's part of that, you know, you're still part of long distance trail culture, even if you're out there for a couple hours, you're still part of that trail. And so I'm really hoping that this book gives people an opportunity to, you know, explore, and also that it shows people that Arizona is so much more than desert. It's just, you know, it's got ponderosa pine forests, it's got, you know, just so many different environments and things like that. And so I'm really excited to finally get this book in people's hands, hopefully in August. I didn't know how we were doing for time, so I didn't know if you wanted me to tell another story.
That's awesome. That's great. So a couple questions that I have. How long does it take to through hike the AZT, and what time of year do you do it? Because as you said, this is more than desert, but I'm thinking like, does it snow on the AZT? Like I'm not familiar with Arizona. So tell us a little bit about that.
It does, big time. Actually, the first thing you do, so people through hiking the trail will do it. They'll head northbound from the Mexican border in March or April, depending on how fast you're going. And then heading southbound from the Utah border, like between September and October. But if you're starting at the Arizona Trail in March, it's pretty interesting because the very first thing you do is you climb up to 9,000 feet, like in the first 5 miles of the trail. And so like people, I can always tell when people haven't done their research because they're like, I had no idea that, you know, they're like postal.
Welcome.
Yeah. And they're like, I thought I was going to be walking through cactus. But yeah, it's very, you know, we have what's called sky islands in southern Arizona. So we have these giant mountains that rise up to 9,000 feet. For example, Tucson is surrounded by 3 different mountain ranges that are over 8,000 feet. So there are these big mountain ranges with valleys in between. And so you'll go from 9,000 feet down to 4,000 feet and back up to 9,000, you know, 8,000 feet and down. So that's like the first 200 miles, you're going up and down these gigantic mountains. And if you thought you were in for a flat walk, you're pretty surprised. And the reason that you hike northbound is because in the spring is because in like north of the Grand Canyon near the Utah border, you're on what's called the Kaibab Plateau. That's at 9,000 feet. That's feet and feet and feet of snow on a regular year. And so like if you wanted to start in March, and also the road to the Grand Canyon and Grand Canyon North Rim is closed until May, generally in a regular year. And so that's why you have to go northbound in the spring and southbound in the fall. And it generally takes people anywhere. It took me 2.5 months to hike it. And it generally takes people anywhere from 45 days to 3 months. But then there's the fastest known time, which is, I can't remember what it is right now, but it's something like, I don't know. It's not very many days. I think it's like 2 weeks. So, but yeah, so that's why.
Holy smokes, you're moving if you're getting that done in 2 weeks. Dang.
Yeah, it's pretty. They had a couple people, not this year, but last year, it was like somebody broke the fastest known time, and then somebody broke it again, and then somebody broke it, and they broke both the supported and unsupported. It was super fast. So I am not fast. I actually.
Wow.
I'm not super fast. I'm on the slower side, but I'm also slow because I love taking photos and just staring at scenery and watching clouds and stuff like that. So I move pretty fast when I'm moving, but then I take a lot of breaks.
Yeah, I love that. So where can people find you on the internet and follow along with your book and everything you've got coming up?
So I'm Desert Sirena on all of my Twitter and Instagram, and I Trails Inspire at Trails Inspire on Twitter and Instagram. And then I also have my blog. You can find it if you find Serena's Wanderings is my blog, and then Trails Inspire is my website, my business website. And like I said, my book will be out in August.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for joining us. If you have time, stick around because we're going to do the group gratitude circle before the end. But thank you so much for being here, Sirena. I love your stories. Thank you for sharing.
Thanks. And I appreciate that. Thanks, Allison. I love this dress. It's one of my favorites. And it looked like
Awesome.
Mary wanted
Great.
to share something.
Oh, yeah. Mary, did you have something to share real quick before we move on to Sue? There she is.
Hi. I just wanted to share that I enjoyed hearing your story. I'm also from the Chicago suburbs, and my only like outdoor like nature experience was the forest preserves.
Yep.
So, and my first hike ever was in Tucson, visiting my brother at college at the University of Arizona, and I was scared to death. I was convinced we were going to get eaten by coyotes and attacked by rattlesnakes. And it was like a midnight hike at their graduation.
Wow.
So I've come a long way. I still have a long way to go. So I'm excited to pick up your book when it's out. And I just wanted to share, as another Chicagoan that's now in the West Coast, how much I appreciated your story.
Oh, thanks so much. Yeah, you know, I actually spent tons of time in Bussy Woods, which was like the closest forest preserve. And
Yeah.
it's so funny because I when I moved out here, I told people, I was like, do you know that like in the Chicago area, if you go to like a forest, it's paved. Like we don't have trails. Like you're going on a paved area with like a bunch of picnic tables and stuff like that. So it was hard for people to understand like where I came from when I first moved to Arizona, because everybody's such a hiker. So
Yeah.
thanks for sharing.
Yeah. Thanks.
Thanks for having me on, Sydney.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for being here. All right. Come on down, Miss Sue. Let's see. We're going to do a little switcheroo here. So she's just going to sit by me and we're going to talk. I think we can do this. Let me see if I need to scoot a little closer, not burn myself to death. Okay. Hi. All right. So if you're in the chat, can you hear us okay? Get some light on Sue's face. Yep. Okay, great. Awesome. Hi.
Hi.
So for everybody that doesn't know, Sue is the founder of Sundance Vibes. She's also the owner of the Reggae Ranch. So first things first, why did you move here?
Oh boy. So, well, for a long time, we really wanted to get some kind of big property so we could have space to, you know, have our friends and family over and just share that space with them. It was always like a someday plan, as you say. But at the end of 2018, Dustin started having some pretty serious health issues due to an industrial accident that he had. And this made him basically allergic to every kind of household product and personal care product, and like things from soap to shampoo to laundry detergent, cleaning solutions, all of these things. And it was such an impact on his life. I mean, there was a point where he was sleeping in the garage because he couldn't even be in our house. And I mean, he can't just walk into any building and without having some kind of reaction. After I think he went into the hospital the second time for anaphylactic shock, we realized like we had to do something. We had to make some drastic changes. So what we did was we kind of pushed forward with our someday plan and started looking for things that were out with more fresh air, away from the city more. And we found this place, and this place was kind of perfect. So I think as when we saw the stage, we were like, that's it.
Yeah,
this
it's done.
This is us. Yeah. So that's how we got here.
And what's your vision for this space?
So our vision is that it's a retreat for traveling artists and a private event venue. You know, we've had a lot of people approach us about having big festivals because we do have 9 acres. There's a lot of space, but there's just a different level of intimacy. It's a different vibe when it's just kind of a small group, family and friends. And so that's how we came to thinking that we would stick with private events. It's just a different level of, I don't know, vibe, but also respect.
Yeah.
Yeah, because, you know, we really want people to respect the land, not trash it. And if you've ever been to a major festival and seen the chaos afterwards, it's you know, we don't have a huge crew to clean up afterwards.
It's like
it's
the four
just
of us.
us.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, we've got the wind that can do that kind of damage for us.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's kind of what we're thinking. Eventually, I would love to make it more of an art center, so we can provide, you know, a space for people to come and learn and just experience art in a different way, and just, you know, for the community itself.
I love that.
Yeah.
Yay. So this chapter is Embrace Your Stink. And I know that you have done some embracing of your stink. Do you have
Oh,
any
yeah.
stories of embracing stink that you'd like to share with the class?
Yeah, so God, so many stories, take a lifetime. But I guess what I wanted to really talk about was kind of my journey getting here. And so in 2004, I was at the end of a 9-year relationship with my ex-husband. And it was a pretty destructive relationship. It got abusive in the end. And I had to make a choice at one point. Out of the options that I had, and suicide was one of them. And I decided that wasn't going to be it because I couldn't leave my family that way. I realized one day when I was thinking about it and looking at my kids, because at the time I had 3 little girls, 5, 3, and 1. And I realized that I couldn't keep going with how it was going because I didn't want them to witness what was happening and think that that was love and carry that into their lives. And so that's when I knew I had to make a change. And I found a way to get away. At the time, we were homeless. I mean, there were nights where I slept in the car with the girls, and there were many times that I tried to leave and it was impossible, but I had a chance and I finally left. And I went into a domestic violence shelter and a safe house. And from there, you know, when I went in, I had my mom's car and a bag of clothes, and that was it. I didn't have anything else. Everything else was gone. When we had left our last place, we put everything in storage. We lost the storage unit, so I lost everything. And it was pretty devastating at the time. But when I got into the program and I knew I was safe, then I just realized at that point, for one, I had to put myself back together because I didn't know, like, I didn't know anything about myself. I didn't know what my favorite color was. I didn't know why I liked the things that I liked, if I really liked them or if I liked them because I was expected to like them. I wasn't, prior to leaving, I wasn't allowed to work. I wasn't allowed to go to school. So I was really kind of stuck in my options, I thought. But after leaving and sitting there, and I had this weird sense of clarity. There was something so beautiful about not having anything. It was, and I called it like, there's a beautiful freedom in having nothing, because I knew I could go in any direction that I wanted. I knew that I wanted to help people, but I didn't know what that meant. So I tried a lot of things. I ended up, I went through the program, I graduated the program, and then I got a job and worked my way up the corporate ladder. And at one point, Dustin and I met and we ended up getting married. He helped me, you know, with going back to school and getting certified and doing all of that. And so I worked my way up and I became the head of HR for this multi-state company in a very male-dominated workforce. and industry. It was very interesting, but, you know, and I thought, you know, what I wanted to do, which was probably right at the time, was to be able to support my family. I wanted to buy a house. I wanted the car. I wanted the shoes. I wanted the clothes. I wanted the purse. Like I got to that place finally. Like I get my hair done, I get my nails done, like all the time. And I just felt like there was something missing. Like I would sit in my office and just feel like I'm not doing what I should be doing. And I didn't really have like an explanation for it. And I would break down some days and I just feel like I'm not supposed to be doing this. This isn't where I'm meant to be. I felt like I was meant to do something bigger. Not that I thought I was like Mother Teresa or anything, but like I just felt like something was missing. And so I tried so many creative outlets. I tried starting my own businesses, and then I would realize at some point that it just wasn't right. And I kept searching and searching and trying to find things. And it kind of got to be like almost a joke that, oh, this is what we're learning now, you know, because I would learn all these skills and then I'd be like, yeah, this is not what I want to do. And then, but what I liked about all of that, you know, now looking back, because I would think, God, I'm starting this, I'm spending this money, I'm doing these things, and then just to dump it. But everything that I did, I learned a different skill that helps me do what I do today. So building websites, you know, having an e-commerce platform, just even, you know, just marketing itself and all of these things that I kind of just taught myself because I felt like it. It all helped me to get where I'm at today. And yeah, so I ended up starting Sun-Drenched Vibes. And then because we have this love for music, we would go to shows all the time, and I just wanted to keep doing that. And because music was such like a healer for me, I wanted to be able to give back to that. So if I could contribute back to the people that brought me so much healing and happiness, I felt like that was something that felt right. And so, yeah, that's what I did. And I kind of lost track of where I was going with that, but yeah,
that's how you got here.
That's kind of how I got here. Yeah.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
You're a badass.
I don't know about that.
It's true. I love it. So, well, okay, then what kind of stink did you have to embrace to get to where you're sitting right now?
You know, it was a lot of just funny, because I feel like this goes all the way back. You know, I feel like I've always kind of been a rebel of some sort. Like I never liked conforming to anything or anybody's idea of what I should be. And the irony is that I did it so many times, you know, and, you know, I did it with my relationship. I did it in corporate America. You know, I just, I just didn't like to do that. And when I got out of that last relationship, it really took me a long time to figure out who I was. And I mean, like trying everything again to see, do I really not like pink? Or is it because it's not cool to like pink, according to my ex? You know, like, yeah, just stupid little things like that. And then figuring out what I did like and what I wanted to be, and, you know, and just letting me be me. And kind of having faith in that I was doing things for the right reason. And I was doing things that felt right and that was helping people, and just kept moving in the right direction, whether or not I thought I failed at it. So yeah. I don't know what else.
You're so inspiring. I can't handle it. So if there's anybody that's watching or listening that is in a similar situation where they have something going on, a domestic violence kind of situation, what advice do you have for them to start making the start wrapping their head around it and eventually getting out?
So I feel like, on some level, and but it's so easy to talk yourself out of these things. I did that so much, and the thing is that I didn't come from a broken family. I didn't come from, poverty. I came from a middle-class family, and I had a typical childhood. I was a cheerleader, I was a dancer, I did all these things, and I always thought I would never let that happen to me. If that happened to me, I would be gone. That's what I always thought. But like, we do crazy things for love, and it's not always bad. And that's the thing. And so it's so easy to convince yourself that things will get better, but at some point you have to make a choice, and like I said, that for me, it was easier to make a choice for my kids than it was to make a choice for myself. And that's when I knew I had to leave. But it's hard because it's kind of like, it's almost like getting, stuck at a job where you're so dependent on it that you think that your life is going to end if you leave, because you're going to be giving up all these opportunities that you invested and worked so hard for. It's kind of the same thing. It's like when you're with somebody for that long and you have this hope that life will work out and things will work out and get better, and life will be grand at some point, but you have to just make a choice. And so what I did was I just started reaching out. There was like a 1-800 number that was on the radio, and it was almost like a sign, because I never heard it before, but maybe I just wasn't open to hearing it. And so at that point I heard it, and I made a call and got a referral to a place, and then I went to that place, and that was an interesting experience. I was really disappointed in the first place I went to because they kind of let me down. I went in there, told them my whole story, thinking, this is it, I'm gonna get out. They're gonna save me right now. And then they put me on the phone with a list and had me call places on my own. And I had to tell my story over and over and over again. And it was so devastating. And then I started freaking out. I was like, I have to go back and I have to have an explanation for where I've been, because how am I going to explain where I've been? And like, I didn't have a place to go. And so that was kind of horrifying. And then I went back, and it took me another couple months before I could actually leave. So it was taking advantage of resources that are out there. Right now, what I would say, because technology is different now too. And so there's online resources, but you have to be careful, because you have to delete your history on your computer and on your phone, to make sure that you don't get caught. But No More is a good place to start. It's an organization online that you can go and you can click where can I get help, and look at what's available in your local area, because every place is different.
Yeah.
And then you just go from there. If you are able to go to family, that's great if you have a support system. For me, I didn't feel like I had that support system, because I kind of burnt all my bridges with that relationship, going to them for different things because I was asked to go and get money from people and things like that. And I really just wanted to, I didn't want to be a burden on anybody. And I just wanted to kind of do what I could on my own. And I was able to do that. And that's why I have faith in people that they would be able to do that also, because I'm not that wonderful. I think that, as scary as things are, what I learned from that was bravery isn't not being scared, it's doing things in spite of being scared.
Mic drop. Let's see. Does anybody have any questions for Sue? If you do, pop them in the chat. We're gonna start with actually, you know what? Let's just go straight to gratitude time. It's gratitude circle time. So what are you thankful for?
I'm thankful for not giving up, because it's really easy to give up. But if you just don't give up, you can find a way through it. I'm thankful for any opportunity that I have to tell my story, because every time I have, I feel like it's given somebody else the opportunity to learn from it as well, and maybe it gives them the courage to do something. And you know what's interesting to me is that it seems that so many people feel like if they talk about, you know, what scares them or their issues or, you know, their trauma and things like that, that it makes you look weak, but it really just empowers you. You know, it's just a fact. It happened, you know, there's no reason not to share, you know, and not that like I tell everybody everything about myself, but you know, the things that I think can really help people, I do, and I still have things to work on, but you know, I always looked at it as if I can just help one person with my story, then it's worth me telling it.
Yeah.
And so I'm thankful for the opportunity to do that. I'm thankful for being alive. I'm thankful for so many things.
You know what that calls for? Muffins. So we have some friends. Craig is he makes muffins. If you live in San Diego, you're gonna want to get these. It's called Muffin But Good Vibes. Shut up, best name ever. And these are inspired by different bands locally. So which one do you want?
I'll take this one because I know that one.
Okay,
really
I like this one. So she's and that's a fun story because that's the Ocean Natives one, right?
Yeah.
So who is Ocean Natives to you?
So Ocean Natives is a local band in the San Diego County area. I think most of them live in Ramona, but yeah, they're a really cool reggae band, and they're pretty awesome people.
They're good cupcakes too. All right, let's do some gratitude. You want to pop out that mic so we can just hear? Perfect. All right, if you want to be grateful tonight while I eat a muffin, Michelle, what are you grateful for?
Hi, I'm actually grateful for Sue's story. I can relate a lot to it because my mom is a survivor of domestic violence, and I was one of those 3 children that witnessed it. But my mom didn't leave my dad. She stayed. They're still together. We witnessed a lot, we experienced a lot, but in our culture, I come from the Mexican culture, old school Mexican culture, no matter what, you don't divorce. You work it out, divorce is frowned upon, and that's how we were raised, and that's how my mom was raised. So there were many times where she wanted to leave, but she was always pushed in the direction of, well, you can't leave. You can't get divorced because that's a sin, and because of this. And so she also didn't want to leave because she didn't want us to grow up without a father. But along with that, we witnessed and experienced a lot of things that kids and nobody should experience or witness. But eventually, after time, my dad sought help. We found out that he was suffering from PTSD due to 3 tours in Vietnam. And that was a big reason why he was the way he was. Now he's a lot better. He's on medication, getting the treatment he needs. But I want to say that I'm grateful for your story because you're one of the few that actually takes that step to get away. Many women stay. So I thank you so much for being that survivor and having the strength to walk away, because I remember seeing my mom and how difficult it was for her to choose, but for her it was more, I don't want my kids to grow up without a father. And to us, we were like, Mom, we need to get out. But I admire your strength and I'm grateful for your story. So thank you.
Thank you.
Boom. Sirena, what are you thankful for?
I am thankful that even though it is blazing hot in the desert, it is still so beautiful here. And I picked and ate my first saguaro fruit of the season this morning. And saguaros are the big, big cactus with the arms and stuff. And it's always a really special time. I don't know how it works, if it would work for me to like show you a picture of what they look like.
Yeah.
Does that work? Oh yeah, it does. Look at that. So there's the flower and there's the fruit. There's the fruit being opened. I ate that. And then that's what it looks like on the inside after I ate it. So the reason that that's important is because here I mentioned that we're on Tohono O'odham ancestral lands, and the saguaro fruit is really important. It's called baidaj, I think is the pronunciation, but it's called the Hassanbach festival, where they harvest the fruits. But the reason that it's really important, like their whole calendar revolves around it. It's a really important food source. They pick the fruit, and the reason I showed those four photos is because after you eat the fruit, you're supposed to. You saw how the red inside of the fruit was really bright. You're supposed to put that facing up to bring the monsoon rains. We have monsoon rains that come from like generally like late June, early July until September. And so Tohono O'odham tradition says that especially the first fruits of the year, you make an offering and you really thank the earth for this fruit. And then you put the fruit out, the husk out to bring the rains. And so I love that tradition, and just try and really do that with mindfulness the first times I see the fruits of the first fruits of the year. And so that was a really special morning for me.
That's so cool. I really need to get to Arizona so I can eat some of those because they sound delicious. Mary, what are you thankful for?
Tonight I'm feeling grateful for all the new music that I've discovered since I discovered Sydney and hiking my feelings. It started with the Read and Reflect. There was a song that you would pair with each chapter, and it's become my go-to playlist lately in the house. And then it's expanded with all the amazing artists that you've brought to the Campfire. So thank you for all this amazing music that you brought to my life.
Yay! I love that. Allison, what are you thankful for?
I was just there basking in the glow. I'm like, oh, and I'm thankful that the universe keeps presenting these things that I need at the moment. I need them. And to learn and grow.
Isn't that funny how that works out?
Yeah, and I just, being open to growth and learning wherever it takes me. And I've had a big life shift with a job, but it's all good. Like, it's not a complaint. It's just a real, like, going deeper. That's what I'm grateful for, going deeper. Thank you for this. It was beautiful.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for being here. Jennifer, what are you thankful for?
So like I said, I had gotten out of the city with everything that was going on the last few days. So I had missed all of those campfires, but I did watch all of them. But one in particular was the one with Dr. Thema. I wanted to say thank you for introducing me to her, because I ended up checking out her podcasts. And she happened to have like 1 or 2 episodes where she was talking about issues that I was really working with and was really having a hard time finding resources. So she had a lot of really good tips for that. So that's what I'm thankful for tonight.
Yay, I love that. And congratulations on doing what you need to do to take care of yourself and get out of the city. And also, we're going to be up there, I think June 20th or 21st through the end of July. We'll be in the East Bay, so we should definitely hang out.
Awesome. I will be here looking for people to go hiking with.
Yeah. Fantastic.
Yeah, I would love to. Cool.
Jess, what are you thankful for?
I'm going to start mine with the short quote from Emerson. Speak what you think today in hard words, and tomorrow speak what tomorrow thinks in hard words again, though it contradict everything you said today. And I love that because I have the freedom to change my mind, for which I'm very grateful. And I have the freedom to evolve and challenge like inherited belief structures or societal constructs that have been handed down, because I'm the type of person that, I mean, if you talk to my high school friends and you talk to my today friends and you talk to my 5 year ago friends, because they're all different. I move a lot, so that I have people everywhere. So anyways, if they all got together in the same room, I think they would have dramatically different stories. Some things would be the same about my very nature and who I am, but they'd all have just different stories. And so I like that. I love that I can evolve and change and grow and learn and challenge who I used to be yesterday and be someone new tomorrow if I need that. So I'm really grateful for that freedom.
Fantastic. Sarah, what you sipping on there? And what are you grateful for?
My dinner. I didn't have anything in the fridge, so I made a smoothie and
There
some
you go.
popcorn. I'm
Fantastic.
grateful that you record all these because I can't seem to get on the Zoom meetings at 7 here in Texas every night. And I'm grateful you let me into the chat. That was a really cool story, Sue. I really liked hearing it. You're not at all what I pictured. Every time they were saying Sue at the reggae ranch, I pictured like an older lady, like a hippie with like gray hair or something, and you're really young and pretty. I don't know.
Well, I'm not that young.
Oh my God, you guys are so cute.
Well, thank you. I think, you know, one of the things that kind of made me make the decision to do this is, you know, I didn't want to like wait till the end of my life to like really live my life. And I felt like that's what so many people do, because we're kind of like trained and programmed to do that. Like you work, you retire, and then you can have your life. But it's like, by that time, am I going to be able to do the things that I want to do? So
yeah, I hate that idea.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think it's awesome.
Thanks.
Yay. And Jason, what are you thankful for, my friend?
I am thankful for fully functioning air conditioning today. Yeah,
That's a good
I was
thing.
actually I've been tuning in. I was fixing a BMW during the beginning of today's live stream. I actually just pulled into my driveway. But yeah, I want to say thank you to Sue and Dustin for your hospitality for when I went to the ranch the other week. Awesome vibes. Awesome. But yeah, I'm thankful. I mean, I guess you could say I'm thankful for being one of the people that, you know, I'm thankful for the safety that I've kind of been in, like, you know, through, with the exception of my traumas. You know, my life hasn't been so rough in that respect as far as any physical danger. I'm actually thankful for that, like, every day. Considering the fact that I drive around fixing cars like all over West LA, I get to see both the really great side of LA and the really screwed up side of LA. I mean, I fix cars anywhere from like Beverly Hills to Pacific Palisades to the project housing, where it's really rough. So I get to see a lot of people's different living situations, whether it's really great, whether it's really bad. A lot of people living in the cars. People that, you know, just have, you can tell they got it really rough. So I'm thankful for, you know, being pretty okay where I'm at, you know, that I get to drive around in this cool Mercedes van and be on virtual, you know, Campfire while I'm at work and still on the clock. So I suppose I've got it pretty okay right now. Yeah.
Yeah, sounds good, man. I like your van.
Dude.
All right, well, thank you guys so much. Tomorrow we have my friend Michelle is back. She was here on Sunday with Amy Laseski when we did our Campfire Girl Scout troop. Michelle's back tomorrow. We also have Christina Italic, and Christina and I met through one of the women's entrepreneurship courses that I took in 2015. She was one of the like mentors in that course, and she was also one of the presenters at the retreat that I went to that summer. And we did an exercise at the retreat. Like the retreat itself was, it is what it was. Like, would I do it again? Probably not, but I would do Christina's section over and over. So she specializes in embodiment and like getting back into your body. She's like one of the most well-versed people I've ever heard speak about the divine feminine and what it means to embody that. So I'm really looking forward to having Christina help us get back into our bodies tomorrow. And then we also have Victoria Amico, who is a member of the Hiking My Feelings family. We met in Westminster, which is also where I met Laura, who's in our community, last year. And she is the founder of Plus Size Outdoors. So she is on a mission to increase body positivity and visibility for people and representation for people of size. So we're really excited to have Victoria here tomorrow to chat about that. And if you guys are watching on YouTube and you would like to donate, throw a couple bucks our way to help us build the retreat center, you can do that at hikingmyfeelings.org/give. And if you decided that during your time watching this that you want to come and join us for the last 4 campfires in the Zoom chat and get all of the cool bonuses from our guests and sponsors, then you can join us at hikingmyfeelings.org/campfire, where you can pick up a day pass or a VIP pass for the rest of the trip. So thank you guys so much for being here. If you're on Zoom, stick around for the post-show chat. If you're on YouTube, we'll see you tomorrow at 5. Peace out, we're Girl Scouts. Here comes Barry.